I'm Janet Noak.
And I'm Andrea Dillon. We are a mother-daughter CPA firm serving the United States business community with tax preparation services, tax planning, tax resolution, assurance and audits, and CFO outsourcing and consulting.
Thank you for listening to the WOW podcast, Words of Wealth from CPAs of Florida. Learn more at cpasofflorida.com or call us at 239-936-6144. So first of all, I want to talk about 2020. As we all know, 2020 has just been a challenging year for many businesses. I mean, some thrived in 20, but not a lot did. So the top 5 small business challenges that we've had in 2000, or that are in the nation in 2020, the first one is going to be cybersecurity. So obviously, stepping up your IT and your computer to overcome that challenge has definitely cost everybody some money, because you've needed to make sure your computer systems were up for remote working. You needed to make sure they couldn't be hacked into. So you're protecting your business, your customers, and your vendors' private data this year more than ever. Secondly, attracting new business. And that's certainly been a different year this year, because was cited as one of the top 2020 challenges in the Wells Fargo Gallup Small Business Poll. And the reason is because we all had to relearn how to attract new business without being out in groups and networking and face-to-face marketing. So definitely that's been a challenge in 2020. And 33% of business owners said an economic downturn is either very likely or extremely likely in the next 12 months, although 2/3 say they are only somewhat prepared for that to happen. So that's definitely a problem that everybody needs to get their hands around. The third one is our competitors, because all of a sudden the competition from online retailers, many people who used to shop in hard stores, brick and mortar stores, now all of a sudden they're going to Amazon. Amazon is a household word. So there's been a whole new way you need to learn to compete in the global economy. And of course, this made client reviews very important, because a review from a client that's not a good review is definitely detrimental to your online presence, which is how we're all having to do business right now. And then, of course, the last one is cash flow. And this is always a challenge for business owners, is to be a cash flow manager and make sure that you have a good handle on your cash flow. So 69% of small business owners who participated in an Intuit study actually said that cash flow concerns keep them up right at night. And I would imagine that's a bigger piece right now. And one of the US bank studies states that 82% of business failures are due to poor cash management. So this is something that's not going away when the current economic situation changes. So definitely cash flow is something we got to watch. So here's where we get into the meat and potatoes of the research and development credit, because based on the previous slide that you just saw, all of our businesses are ever evolving, and there's lots and lots of things that we have to worry about every day. We have to worry about how we're marketing. We have to worry about how we're changing our processes. We have to worry about our cash flow management, the cybersecurity. And all of that requires an economic commitment to make that happen. So in the history of the US, in 1981, all of a sudden there was legislation that rewarded companies for keeping high-paying technology jobs in America. Well, that was kind of the beginning of the research and development credits. So it's been around a long time, but it's been ever evolving. So in 2003, there was a big change. There were new Treasury regulations that said you could qualify if you were evolutionary in your business and not revolutionary in your business. So if you think about that for a minute, if you are evolving your business, then you might be able to qualify for this R&D credit. In the past, you had to be revolutionary. So in effect, you had to come out with something that you could almost patent. It had to be revolutionized. But today, as long as you are evolving your business and you meet some tests that we're going to talk about, you likely might qualify for an R&D credit. Then all of a sudden comes 2015 and the program became permanent and you got to apply the credit against alternative minimum tax. Not a big deal for a lot of business owners that are on this call that I know of, but maybe a couple. So then comes 2017, the TCJA Act, which did a lot of great things. That's where the qualified business income deduction came in. However, basically, they also added some provisions for startups that in the first 5 years of their business, they could now apply the credit against payroll taxes, so you didn't even have to be profitable. So that'll become important as we get through this in a few minutes. Now, really important, according to the IRS, only one company in 300 that qualify actually claims this credit. So let me say that again. Only one company in 300 that qualify actually claim this credit. So that's a big deal. The other thing that's a big deal is there's no federal funding limit for this credit. So if we all think about the PPP loans, everybody raced out and couldn't wait to get their name in the hat because there was only X number of $1 billion in funding that was available. If you qualify for this credit, you actually get the credit. There's no funding limit, nothing. So very important to understand that. The next thing I want to talk about before I get into how you claim, what you have to do to qualify for it, is this is a tax credit. So do you know the difference between a tax deduction and a tax credit? And I'm going to tell you the answer, but tax deduction is if you have $20,000, that comes off of your income and you get back your tax rate percentage of that $20,000. So let's say you're in a 20% tax bracket and you have a $20,000 write-off, in effect, a tax deduction. You're going to get $6,000 off of your tax bill. But if you have a $20,000 tax credit, you get $20,000 off of your tax bill, not the percentage of it. So this is 100% a tax credit and not a tax deduction. So very important to understand that this is something that can give you real value at the bottom line of your tax return. Tim, do we have any questions yet?
No.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so now we're going to get into what do you have to do to actually claim the credit. So it's a 4-part test. And this 4-part, we're going to go into each of the 4 parts, but the 4 parts are, number 1, is it a new or improved business component, product, or process? So I think that probably every business every year has a new or improved business product, a new or improved business process. Do you have someone, for instance, we try to improve our website constantly to make client communication better. Are you doing anything like that that is new or improved? We're going to get into that question further. Is there an elimination of uncertainty? Is there an evaluation of alternatives? And is the desired solution technological in nature? And we're going to get to that as well. But historically, people have always thought that the R&D credit was simply for someone who was a Silicon Valley trying to research, maybe a pharmaceutical company, creating some new product, and they had to do a lot of research to do it. But bottom line is, if you can answer yes to these 4 questions, you qualify to take the R&D credit. So let's dig into this a little bit. So first question, are you offering a new or improved business component? So when you have to look at your product, so let's say you're going to talk about the product being qualifying for the R&D credit. You would have to look at whether it would, what your process is might improve the function or performance, reliability, quality, or efficiency. So you can look, when we say purpose, you could look at your product improving, you could look at your process improving, your formula improving, your invention improving, your software improving, your technique improving. Lots and lots of ways you could just improve the function, performance, reliability, quality, or efficiency. Are you doing something different? Are you trying to improve the quality of one of your products? Are you trying to improve the efficiency of one of your products? Are you implementing softwares that will make this happen? All of that would qualify to be the new or improved business component. Remember that improvement may be evolutionary instead of revolutionary at this point. Now, I don't know about you guys, but I can't imagine a business that didn't somehow evolutionize their product during COVID, because everybody had to learn to do business differently. Restaurants had to figure out how to serve people with keeping a social distancing. People like us had to figure out, well, what do we do? Because everybody always came into our office. Did you go remote? Did you have your employees go remote? Were you set up with a remote server beforehand? Did you go to cloud computing to make this happen? All of these are things that are evolutionary as opposed to revolutionary, and they definitely somehow improved your product, process, formula, etc. So these are all definitely factors that would make you qualify for the R&D credit. Now, what doesn't qualify? If I paint my office, if I redecorate my office, because I think that is going to make my clients like coming in here more, that doesn't qualify. If you have a store and you put in a new counter, that doesn't qualify. Now, if you change your process for checking out, that would. But the personal taste part of it, cosmetic, aesthetic, seasonal design, anything like that actually does not qualify for the R&D credit. That's all personal preference. So if you can think of anything you did that created a new or improved business component, then you would actually qualify on the first test. So let's go to the next test. Next test is elimination of business uncertainty. So the first part of that is capability. Can I do it? So you have to be challenging yourself, maybe in something in your business that you're questioning, can I do it? The method is how do I do it? And the design is what is it? So that doesn't mean design in the way of what color will it be. That means what is the product? So if you are asking one of these questions about one of your products or processes, can I do it? Is it possible for me to do this? And you're going down that path. How do I do it? And you're spending money to figure out how you do it. Or what is it? So am I trying to come up with a whole new product line? Am I trying to come up with a whole new way to do something? Am I designing? Am I a home builder who's saying, can I build a house in 90 days? Is it possible? Can I make a process where I overlap my vendors? I do this, I do that. That is the elimination of business uncertainty. You know, you're asking yourself a question and then you're using this process to come up with answers.
Janet, can I make a little comment here?
Sure.
There's one thing you have to be careful. If you've got a fixed contract for, say, that you're taking something on that somebody is guaranteed to pay you, then that is not going to be R&D tax credit. But if you're putting a new product out there that it's unknown, or you're bidding on something that you're not guaranteed to be paid, and it's a new type of business, or it's a new big client, a lot of that can be considered R&D credit because you're uncertain of the outcome of that work. uncertainty is a necessary element.
Right, Tim, I'm gonna cover that a little bit more in a couple slides ahead, but good point, well taken, because you effectively have to be trying something that you don't know how it will come out, which is number 3, evaluation of alternatives. So first of all, you have to go through an experimentation process, but every time a business owner makes a new decision, you are effectively experimenting. Then you make choices of alternatives. So you identify one or more alternatives with the intention of eliminating uncertainty. And then you try it. So you have trial and error. You have the process of evaluating alternatives, which is done through modeling, simulation, or just trial and error. And you may end up with multiple iterations to getting something new and improved. So every single thing that a business owner decides, they have to go in, they have to think about it, they have to decide what the alternatives are, they have to test the alternatives. And I've always said that there's no way that anybody would get to, they could predict. So when I look at a business plan for a client, when they predict 5 years out, there's no way you know what twists and turns are going to be in the road. And you have to go through this process every single time you have twists and turns in the road. So definitely you have to go through the evaluation of alternatives. And then the 4th test is somehow it has to be technological in nature. But in the technological in nature, the question is, what is technology? So we all think of hard science as technology. We know that biology, chemistry, those are hard sciences. Now, economics, psychology, those aren't going to qualify. You can't say I'm trying to figure out what somebody thinks. But you can, technology is computer, technology is software, technology is a whole lot more than just hard science. And then also, the process of experimentation or like evaluation of alternatives somehow can rely on principles of physical or biological science. It can rely upon computer science, and it can be a known or an unknown. So you might go ahead and have an unknown that you're trying to experiment with. What in the world is going to be the result of this computer program? I don't know. But as Tim said, there has to be risk involved. So you're spending money to have computer changes made or some sort of hard science changes made, or you're getting an advisor to your product. You have a contractor that you're having work with you on your product. But there are 2 points here. Number 1 is that you have to have financial risk. So if you have a hard number, I'm going to pay $1,000 for this to get done, then it's not your risk, it's their risk, because the person that took on that contract doesn't necessarily know they can do it for $1,000. So you have to be on the risk for that. Number 2 is that you have to own the technology when it's done, or the new improved business component, the new and improved product. You have to own the rights to it. You can't just be investing in someone else to do it and then you're going to use their results. So when it's all said and done at the end, you actually have to have rights and own the results.
Jan, we have a question here. I think somebody is finding this hard to believe, but their question is, if you pay an expense in the business and you use it as a deduction in your revenue, you of course are reducing your revenue, so therefore reducing your tax. But is that same expense applicable to an R&D tax credit?
So that's a great question, and I was going to put that in here, but it was a little higher level than. So there's actually 2 ways to calculate this credit. One is that, yes, that same expense qualifies for the credit. But then the second answer is you can make an election to take that expense out of your credit, out of your expenses in the company, and then you actually get a larger credit because you eliminated it as an expense. So So that's a calculation. And when we do these, we actually do it both ways for you. So if we're helping you with this, we help you to get the best answer out of that to make sure that you got great credit, the best benefit of the R&D credit for whichever way it calculates. Does that answer the question, Tim?
I think so. We'll see. He didn't ask any question. If he does, just put it back into Q&A. And another question came in. Do you have to pass, or do you have to pass all 4 tests to be as applicable?
You have to pass all 4 tests, yes. So you have to go through these, and you actually have to pass all 4. But, you know, that's where a professional comes in, because you may not think you pass these tests. You may not think you pass all 4, but professional actually takes you through the steps and actually helps you understand how your processes or your procedures, and we'll stop you if you don't pass all 4 tests, but we certainly are there to work with you and understand do an interview. We'll get to how that happens. Do an interview and make sure that you do pass all 4 tests, because we don't want you to have this not stand up under audit. So what qualifies for this R&D credit? There's a lot that qualifies for it. First of all, wages. So let's say that you have a person who basically spearheads new initiatives at the company or spearheads changes. A percentage of their wages, you can claim the percent based on the time spent in the qualifying activities. You can also claim your own self-employment earnings. If you're a Schedule C person and you're the one doing this, you can claim a percentage of that. And you can claim a percentage of W-2 wages if you have people that specifically work on these new changes, new ideas. How do we improve? How do we get better? Ultimately, this credit is aimed to get U.S. people using U.S. resources to get better. So if we're improving, that's where this qualifies. Supplies. So raw material costs. So let's say you are manufacturing something or you're building something and you're using consumables to try this out. Those all count. The prototype components costs. In South Florida, we don't have a lot of manufacturing, but that would qualify. Contractors. So if you have contractors that are helping you do this, 65% of the amount paid to those contractors qualifies. Costs related to third-party contractors qualify. Outside consulting, we at our firm have an outside consultant who helps us automate and modernize a lot of our procedures, and that qualifies. So the engineers, the testing facilities, outside consulting, all of those costs qualify. And the other thing that qualifies is 100% of cloud computing. And I don't know about you, but we have moved a lot of our software to the cloud. And I know very few people that aren't using something as simple as Office 365 or Adobe in the cloud. There are lots of cloud-based softwares that actually 100% of those qualify. Now, I don't want to mislead you. You're not getting 100% of these numbers. Typically, you get anywhere from 5 to 15% of the total. But hey, if you're spending $100,000 on these things and you get $15,000 back, that's a pretty good trade-off. So that's where this credit comes in. Any other questions yet, Tim?
No, nothing yet. Keep on. Everybody's got it.
I want to wrap up here. So a couple more slides, and then startup businesses. If you have a startup business that's revenue less than $5 million, one of the big changes of 2017 TCJA Act is they said if you have no more than 5 years since the first dollar in revenue that you ever reported, then you can actually use this to offset your payroll costs while you are creating and growing your company. So you're going to use it to offset payroll taxes. So that's a big deal, and it can actually be up to $250,000. Once again, that's something that is a bigger conversation than right now. This was just a basic top-level R&D credit. And I did want to go through some of the myths and the truths about this R&D credit. So first of all, everybody thinks that there's been all kinds of changes in laws. No, not necessarily true. They've evolved, but they haven't changed. People don't believe that they're doing research. Well, research, as we talked about, can be evolution of your business. It does not have to be research. They also believe if they have a small amount of taxable income, they don't qualify. Not true. It's not complicated, doesn't create an audit red flag. The documentation is not challenging if you have the right advisor, and it's certainly not for big companies only. As I mentioned earlier, only 1 in 300 companies that qualify are actually taking advantage of this. And then the truths, we have the expertise to guide you through this. We've developed processes and tools to help you. The latest changes do allow the payroll offset and lots of eligibility offset options for small businesses. And there's actually a lower audit risk for this than for the tax returns in general. So not a high audit risk. The key is going to be to have your documentation done correctly. So how does it happen? We do a free assessment of the estimated benefits for you. We would gladly do a free consultation with you to get you to the point where there's a question of whether or not you would qualify. Once then we do a detailed study. That's where we would enter into an engagement. We would do an interview. We do all your calculations. We would prepare the report. We would do the coordination with the tax filings, whether we're filing your taxes or someone else is filing your taxes. And one of the big things is this can actually go back 3 years. So if you've done this for the 3 prior years and you haven't been able to capitalize on it, we will actually help you determine if the 3 prior years could have benefit. And then we help to prepare, we prepare a documentation package for the future defense, because we want to make sure that if there was an IRS audit of this amount, that you would get you would have something already in your hands and you would be all set for that. I'm Janet Noak.
And I'm Andrea Dillon. We are a mother-daughter CPA firm serving the United States business community with tax preparation services, tax planning, tax resolution, assurance and audits, and CFO outsourcing and consulting.
Thank you for listening to the WOW podcast, Words of Wealth from CPAs of Florida. Learn more at cpasofflorida.com or call us at 239-936-6144.